Perfect way to start your morning right here on KBC Channel 1. Welcome to Good Morning Kenya. My name is Mike. Maybe today is Wednesday, the 14th of January 2026. A lot is happening in the country, but before we get into that, let me introduce the team. Good morning, Vivian.
Good morning, Mike. How are you this morning?
I am great. It's a great morning.
It's a beautiful morning. Yeah, the weather looks good outside.
Yeah.
It's a good way to start the morning.
Yeah, indeed. Alafu inafika masaa ingine jua inachoma.
Kabisa.
Good morning, Ray.
Good morning to you, and I have a question to both of you.
Please do.
What can 100 million shillings do?
Oh, 100 million Kenyan shillings can do a lot. I mean, I know where that conversation is coming from because, you know, we had a politician complaining that 100 million shillings is little money and it cannot do much for the constituency. But, I mean, 100 million shillings can do quite a lot. Well,
there's no little money, actually.
Yeah.
There's no little money, if you ask me. Whether it's 100 million or 100,000, a lot can happen. A lot can happen through that. And why are you asking that question?
I'm asking that question because we are already in the budget cycle for 2026-2027. This is a process that began sometime last year. But the question is, do citizens participate in the budget-making process? That's one. Secondly, do we hold those who are supposed to be, do we hold them accountable? You know, the ones who get these monies and are in their charge, you know, to work on development, recurrent expenditure and such. Also, I'm asking this question because let's say we've already been seeing what is happening in the political scene. We're already in the campaigns ahead of 2027.
Yeah.
The question is, does Mwananchi get value for the investment they made in the leaders that they chose?
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Because we are having reports of some leaders doing exemplary well, while others are posing those questions and making those statements.
Yeah.
Well, their own citizens are complaining about lack of water, lack of requisite infrastructure, especially the one that is required to ensure that the populace within the constituency is well catered for.
And more,
and we are in a queer position.
Yes, and more importantly, you know, Kenyans, thanks to social media and mainstream media, Kenyans have seen what's possible. So when they ask questions based on information. They have a template on which they are referring to. So if they ask questions, as a leader, are you ready to answer those questions based on the possibilities that the Kenyans have seen?
Yes, and these questions need to be asked. You know, the word is accountability. Yes, we need to hold all our leaders accountable because we can't have, you know, some parts of the country not moving forward at all in terms of development in the constituencies, you know, in the counties, and in other places we see, you know, leaders who have actually really put in the work with the money that has been allocated to them. So yes, accountability is the word, and we should all ensure that we are ensuring that, you know, these leaders that we have put to the positions that they are in are actually working for you as the Mwananchi. You know, we have to applaud Kiharu Member of Parliament, Ndindi Nyoro, for the work that he's been doing. I mean, imagining that, you know, as a parent, just knowing that that burden of school fees has been, you know, lifted off your back, you know, knowing that you'll only be paying 500 shillings, 500 shillings only per term. Can you imagine what that feels like, you know, for a parent who has a child
you know that
in senior secondary school?
And you know, he said that that fees applies to any students from any part of the country who is schooling within schools that are located within Kiharu constituency. Yeah. So I think it's time that leaders woke up and Kenyans know how to hold their leaders accountable. And today we'll be having a conversation away from that conversation regarding matters to do with party politics and pre-election pacts, given that in Kenya mostly power is won, or elections are won through coalitions. Speak of 2002, now coalitions, the Jubilee Coalition and now Kenya Kwanza Coalition. But the question here is it about ideological convergence or political survival? And given that now ODM and UDA planning to have that pre-election talks gearing towards 2027 elections. I'll be having in studio with me Honorable Wilson Sosion, who is a former nominated MP, Warimu Gatacha, who is an advocate of the High Court, and also Peter Mutuku Mutua, who is a governance and leadership expert. Vivian?
And later on, after Mike sticks on matters politics, we will be talking engineering, yes, shaping our urban future, or the urban future. And I will be joined by one engineer, Shama Kiteme, who is the President, Institution of Engineers Kenya. We'll also be having the President, Architectural Association of Kenya, that is Mr. George Arabu, as we just try and see, since the year began, we saw two buildings collapsing, one in Eastleigh and the other one in Karen. So we are trying to look at ways in which we can engineer a space that is safe for living, for the growing community. So that will be our conversation at around 8 a.m. You definitely want to be tuned in for that. What do we have in the news, Ray?
We have so much in as far as matters of politics, business and sports is concerned, but I'm looking forward to those two conversations that you're going to be having, especially Mike Megwe. Right now, when we're looking at the political scene, you've asked a very pertinent question. Yes. Are we making political party concessions, so to speak, or partnerships or coalitions, because our policies are similar, or for political survival? Will history repeat itself, or has the Kenyan voter actually, morphed?
Exactly, and the question of will the Kenyan voter, as at now, when it comes to political parties, do they really have trust in those political parties?
Back in the day, when I was young and I would listen to conversations from my elders, it would be that statement, tunapiga kura suit.
Yes.
Now, basically, just expose how old I am. Anyway, no worries, but that's a good question. Yeah. Then the other conversation, Ndego, you're going to be having in regard to how does the future of engineering look like going forward, looking at the current situation as we're talking. Right now, we have a family that is, seeking compensation and assistance after they lost their kin in those collapsed buildings. So the question is, do we lack the requisite capacity within the engineering space, or in as much as we have the local content policy that's supposed to ensure that as these projects are being undertaken, that we have our local engineers, certified engineers, being the ones that are running these projects? So is it a lack of implementation or capacity? From where I sit, having engaged with the engineering fraternity, we have the requisite local capacity. Yes. The issue is, do we have implementation? Can we follow through with what is in paper? Those are the pertinent questions, because we have engineers who have now diversified from engineering because they do not get the engineering opportunities, and they have divested, or rather gone into other fields, to try and eke a living, right? In as much as we do not have the right numbers, we have around 15,000 to 2,000, 25,000, that, so to speak. So that's a conversation that is timely. But before we get there, now let's bring you up to speed with those stories that have been making headlines in the last 12 hours. And we start off with some rather sad note. A family in Mbale, Vihiga County, is mourning a man who went missing on Christmas Eve and was discovered dead in a septic tank, a case that has shocked residents. Jane Kasigane, the mother to the deceased, noted that her 43-year-old son, Humphrey Mbalaga, went missing shortly after visiting home. Despite efforts to trace him, the family had received no information about his whereabouts until the shocking discovery. Investigations into Mbalaga's death are currently ongoing.
Residents of Mbale in Vihiga County woke up to a grim scene after a foul smell led members of the public to alert authorities, prompting police officers to visit the site. Upon inspection, officers recovered the bodies of two middle-aged individuals, a man and a woman, under circumstances that have raised serious concerns among locals. One of the victims has since been identified as 43-year-old Humphrey Mbalaga, who went missing on Christmas Eve. Speaking in grief, Jane Kasigane, the mother to the deceased, described the moment she learned of the recovery of her son's body as devastating.
Hata nilikuwa nalia, lakini nikaambia Mungu, nifunge kamba, nisilie. Sijui ni nini imetokea kufanyika hivyo. Kama ni yenyewe imejilete ni sawa, na kama ni mwanadamu ameenda juu chini anataka kumaliza mji yangu, nimemwachia Mungu.
She termed the incident a double tragedy, revealing that the family is still mourning the death of her husband who passed away in October last year.
Kwa tunaomba tumalize hiyo mwaka vizuri, ndio hii ikatokea Disemba. Mpaka saa hii ndio tumepata hii msiba. Sasa hapa mimi naomba serikali nisaidie. Hii maneno ni maneno mzito, kwa sababu hii maneno imefanyika kama hatuna mbele na nyuma.
Mbihi Assistant Chief Alex Omenda says a second victim's body is yet to be identified as the bodies were found in an advanced stage of decomposition.
So mpaka ile wataalamu wataingilia zaidi ili tuweze kusaidika, ili tuweze kutambua ni mili ya kina nani.
The bodies have been moved to Vihiga County Referral Hospital mortuary, where postmortem examinations are expected to be conducted to aid investigations.
We'll be keeping tabs on that development there. Now, a distraught mother from Ndiwa village, Homa Bay County, is demanding answers over alleged negligence at the Kendege prison after her 25-year-old son suffered severe burns, which were not reported to the family. Caroline Akoth says prison officials failed to notify that her son, Lawrence Oguda, had been badly injured despite having her contact information. Oguda, who is serving a 6-year sentence, is now fighting for his life at the Migori County Referral Hospital after sustaining extensive burns inside the prison kitchen in Kenyatta, Migori County. John Kahiro has that story.
The Migori County Referral Hospital, a mother is in anguish and tears. Desperate, she searches for answers about her son's condition. According to Caroline Akoth, mother to Lawrence Oguda, she only discovered her son's condition on the 5th of December 2025 during an unplanned visit to the facility.
Wakaniuliza ni nani amenipigia simu, nikamwambia hakuna mwenye alinipigia simu, mimi nimeona tu nikuje nione mtoto wangu sababu nimemmiss. Wakasema ati kuna shida kidogo. Nikamwambia kwani nini imefanyika? Nikauliza nini imefanyika? Wakasema ati alikuwa amepata tu accident kidogo, alikuwa kwa jikoni na bahati mbaya akateleza akaanguka.
Pain written all over her face. Akoth says she was told Oguda had suffered a minor injury but was stunned when she found him severely burnt and bedridden inside the prison's dispensary.
Kauliza daktari, kwani kiwango ya hii moto iko ngapi? Akaniambia ati hii kiwango si mbaya, ndio maana tuko na yeye hapa. Ingekuwa mbaya singekuwa na yeye hapa, singemweka hapa kwa dispensary yetu.
Despite assurances that Oguda was recovering, Akoth says his condition worsened, forcing her to demand his transfer to a higher level facility. The family is now questioning why the prison withheld information about the injury and whether Oguda received timely and proper medical care, pointing to possible negligence.
Kwa nini wanamwacha huko ndani na wanajua kiwango ya moto imefika juu hivyo na wanamweka huko kwa dispensary kwa prison huko ndani? Si wangemtoa mapema watafute na yeye matibabu, hata kama sasa unapigiwa simu naambiwa mami mtoto wako amepata ajali kidogo lakini tumemtoa ako hospitali fulani. Hiyo ingekuwa afadhali, lakini sasa wanaacha mpaka mimi mwenyewe ndio niende.
In a rejoinder, the Kendege prison officials say Oguda slipped and fell into a cauldron of hot porridge during a kitchen duty. And inside the facility, reconstructive surgeon Dr. Michael Kibira confirms that Oguda suffered severe burns covering more than half of his body and requires specialized treatment.
suffered some 55% actually burns, suffering involving the back, the lower limbs and both upper limbs. The patient came to us about 2 months after suffering these burns, so we are trying to do the best we can with the situation that he is right now. Currently, he came to us actually suffering from burn sepsis. So we are trying to give him some antibiotics, time to give him some fluids, and to actually just make him comfortable with some good dressings and pain management.
So the said prisoner, that is Oguda there, was received at that particular health facility having suffered burn sepsis dated 2 months. Well, something doesn't sound right there. We'll be keeping tabs on that developing piece from Migori. Now, cross borders, the Uganda government has ordered for an indefinite temporary shutdown of public internet access and selected mobile services commencing yesterday evening ahead of its general elections slated for Thursday this week. The Uganda Communications Commission's directive is expected to affect access to internet, registration of new SIM cards and data roaming services. This even as a section of human rights activists raised alarm over what they describe as a shrinking democratic space ahead of the elections.
Hours before Uganda heads to the polls, that has attracted the interest of 8 candidates, including incumbent President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni and his arch-rival Robert Chagulanyi, popularly known as Bobby Wine. The Ugandan authorities appear to have taken a drastic move in what it says will stem the spread of misinformation, disinformation, electoral fraud and incitement to violence. The Uganda Communications Commission, in a statement, says internet access, new SIM card registration and data roaming will be temporarily restricted beginning Tuesday evening. The Commission, in its directive, targets social media platforms, web browsing, video streaming, personal email services and messaging applications. Operators have also been directed to disable mobile virtual private networks or VPN services on their networks. Healthcare services, banking services, government systems and other essential services providers have, however, been spared from the directive. The shutdown will continue until the Commission issues a notice lifting the order. In the meantime, a section of activists claim the anticipated election will not be credible owing to shrinking democratic space. Speaking in Nairobi under the banner of Africans for Africa, the activists accused the Justice Simon Mugenyi Byabakama-led Electoral Commission of bias, intimidation of opposition candidates, and facilitating an environment that undermines free and fair elections.
Main organizations were denied accreditation for monitoring the elections. A lot of organizations have been banned. The other political contenders that were in the race, most of them have been treated unfairly.
When you look at even in Kampala right now, in major towns, the UPDF has taken over. In fact, the Electoral Commission is not in charge. It's the police, it's the military.
The Electoral Commission has repeatedly denominated candidates of the opposition party from the nomination list, hence giving an unfair advantage to the NRM candidates, some going unopposed.
Now, I don't know to say if we'll be following up on what is happening in Uganda come the 15th, which is on Thursday, but we'll try and keep tabs with what is happening in across that particular neighboring country. If you are on social media platforms, there's been a lot of discourse in regard to human rights and especially access to information. So one of the trending hashtags on X at the moment is actually Bobby Wine. So if you haven't gotten or rather learned what is happening in Uganda and you have your persons and you're keen in Uganda, you might as well just find out how they are and how the situation is. You might also give this particular feedback to us through our various channels, including X at KBC Channel 1. Do you have an update in Uganda? What are the people on ground saying? All right. Now, learners across the country continue reporting to their various senior schools on the second day of admission. However, despite the exercise being seamless in some institutions, parents expressed concern over inconsistency in requirements listed in admission letters from the government and those from the schools. Some learners are, however, yet to get placement to any school as of yet.
At Homa Bay School in Homa Bay County, Grade 10 learners are streaming in for admission a day after the exercise started countrywide. However, parents are raising concerns over some learners yet to get placement.
Some students are still at home. Some students have not got the letters, although there was some change that the government made, but it was not enough for all the students in Kenya. So some are still missing the place to go.
According to Lucy Omolo, the situation has particularly affected children from poor families.
That one should be considered because some are coming from the poor family. They should be taken to the nearest school because they want they can learn in day school.
Naona ni kama serikali na shule wanafaa in future kila kitu ikuwe inaambatana. Si ati unafika shule unapata zile zenye serikali alikupatia ni tofauti kidogo na ya shule. Okay, kama kwa ile barua ya serikali ilisemekana tununue vitabu. Ilisemekana tununue vitabu. Mali kama hapa tunapata vitabu ziko zile za shule.
Transfer requests are already approved by other schools, but a few number around 20 to 30 are still pending. We believe by the ministry will sort it out.
At St. Joseph High School in Githunguri, school principal Francis Miano called upon parents to continue registering their students since the school has enough classrooms to accommodate 500 students.
The CBE system is new. There will be the issue of assigning these students classes, given that they're doing very many combinations. And therefore, we may have a challenge of ensuring that the students are able to fit into the various pathways.
Pesa ya basari na mambo ya capitation iwe inaachiliwa mapema. Diposa wazazi wae wanachukua basari kwa mapema na shule hiyo inasaidiwa mambo na capitation mapema waweze kujiandaa mapema.
And we would request the government to continue doing it so that the laboratories, the books, even the teaching personnel can be added to be able to cater for the big numbers.
By early Tuesday, 250 students had been enrolled in grade 10 in the school. These 355 schools in Mwingi Central Constituency, Kitui County, have benefited from books donated by Kitui Chief Officer in charge of Finance, John Makau.
Wazazi wa area hii huzingatia sana mambo ya kilimo, lakini mvua haikunyesha vizuri, ndiposa sasa akaonelea ni vyema ili aje apatie watoto vitabu na kalamu kwa sababu mazao hayakuwa mazuri mwaka huu.
We'll take a quick breather. Remember, this is in the headlines and you can be part of this conversation. Get us on X at KBC Channel 1. For now, that breather, we'll be back with more. Welcome back. You're watching In the Headlines on Good Morning Kenya. I'm Regina Manyara. Now, the family of Raphael Mwandika, who died after a building under construction collapsed in Karen, is demanding compensation and justice for their loved one. The family says since the death of Mwandika, they have not received any communication from either the owner of the building or relevant authorities.
At the Nairobi City Mortuary as the family of the late Raphael Mwandikwa, who died after a building under construction collapsed in Karen, await the post-mortem results of their loved one.
Around 4:50 ndio nilipiga bado simu yake tena ikashikwa na jamaa fulani, sikumbuki jina lake. Akaniambia, nikamuuliza mwenye simu ako wapi, akaniuliza wewe ni nani kwake, nikamwambia mimi ni bibi yake. Akaniambia huyu jamaa amepata ajali na ni kama ameatuacha.
The family says they still have many unanswered questions on the death, with those expected to give them answers going mute on them.
Hakuna mtu yeyote amewasiliana, contractor, foreman wote, hata mwenye nyumba hawajawasiliana. Bado tunangoja tuone kama watatufikia.
Raphael's wife, Rachel, said her husband was the breadwinner and is appealing to well-wishers for financial support.
Mimi niko na watoto wadogo na niko jobless. Huyu ndiye alikuwa breadwinner. So mimi naomba tu wajitokeze, we just have a seat na tujue Raphael atapata justice.
The body is at City Mortuary and will be laid to rest on 24th January at his home in Kitui County. The ill-fated building caved in on Saturday, killing 2 people and injuring 7 others.
Is going to be forming part of our conversation later on Good Morning Kenya, as Vivian Ndegwa is going to be engaging stakeholders within the engineering space. We're talking about the REK President, Engineer Shama Kiteme, alongside Engineer Architect George Arabu, who is the President of the Association of Architects in the country. The conversation is, how does the future portend, for engineering going forward, and also how do we decisively address the issue of incompetency or their lack of, implementation of the 40%, local 40%, local content policy that is already there in this particular space. You can be part of this conversation. Get us an X at KBC Channel 1. That effectively takes us to matters business, where the National Treasury Cabinet Secretary John Badi has defended the proposed sale of 15% stake in Safaricom to Vodacom, arguing that growing pressure on public finances has created the need to mobilize alternative funding for priority expenditure without increasing public debt. Badi says relying on dividends enterprises the government has a stake in is no longer sufficient given competing demands for infrastructure financing. Trevor Ngendo with the details.
Yes. Did we give these other shareholders information?
How do you secure, how can we reinvest this money so that it will go to the purpose intended?
Are we diversifying this particular investment? And then we have the money sitting in our bank accounts, not absorbed for the next 1 or 2 years.
This money is going to be used exclusively to set up a seed capital national infrastructure fund.
Under the proposal to sell 15% of its stake in Safaricom to strategic investor Vodacom, the government targets to raise 204.3 billion shillings. After the transaction, the government would retain a 20% shareholding and 2 seats on Safaricom's board, which the National Treasury says will safeguard national interests and preserve Kenya's digital and innovation leadership.
There is a reason why we are going to the market to raise funds, and that reason is to send up a national infrastructure fund. As a government, we are projecting that we want to raise about 500 to 600 billion as seed capital.
Badi says Vodacom, which already holds a 40% stake in Safaricom, was the preferred strategic investor due to its long-standing partnership with the company. which means less disruptions. As part of the transaction, Vodacom has made several commitments aimed at protecting local interests, including a pledge of no acquisition-related redundancies for at least 3 years, retention of Kenyan leadership through a Kenyan chairperson and independent directors, and continued support for the Safaricom Foundation social and community programs.
They will control the elections, they'll control security, they'll control everything. Have we sat down to really think twice about selling Safaricom? Ownership or shareholder ownership does not apply when it comes to security, data protection and all that. It is our laws.
According to the National Treasury, the final negotiated price of 34 shillings per share represents a 17% premium over the prevailing market price, valuing Safaricom at 1.158 trillion shillings.
We decided to retain 20% strategically, but that does not mean that tomorrow, if we see the need, and I want to put it very clear, so that when it comes again another time that we are offloading more shares, Kenyans should not come up and say that we said we were only offloading 15. 15% is what we are offloading now. That is what we are divesting now. But a decision can be taken again in future by this government or any other government.
The proceeds from the sale are expected to support priority infrastructure projects as the government seeks to reduce borrowing. With key agencies weighing in, the final outcome now rests with Parliament, whose decision would determine the state's stake in the telecoms giant.
And we'll be keeping tabs on that. Now crossing over to sports, the National Olympic Committee of Kenya has officially launched the 2026 Athletes Week in Nairobi, bringing together 140 athletes from over 30 national sports federations. The 4-day seminar will conclude this Friday.
Speaking after the launch, NOC President Shadrack Maluki stressed that the athlete welfare remains their top priority as Kenya heads into the demanding international competition cycle.
Tunataka muweke bidii zaidi. Manake tunataka mng'are. Mking'ara, taifa inang'ara. Mking'ara, Kenya inasifika. Hiyo bendera yetu ya taifa wakati inapandishwa kwa mlingoti, nyimbo ya taifa ikipigwa, dunia nzima ikisimama wima kwa sababu umeshinda, ni kumaanisha mamilioni yote ya Wakenya wako nyuma yako.
He noted that with major events such as Milano Cortina Winter Olympics, the Dakar 2026 Youth Olympic Games, and the Glasgow 2026 Commonwealth Games, holistic athlete support is no longer an option.
We understand you because, as I said earlier, we've been in those shoes. We will be working to ensure that there are programs that ensure your transition is smooth. You don't just expire. We train you back to start giving back to the same federations where you guys are coming from.
The Athletes Week combines two key initiatives, the National Athletes Forum running on the 13th and 14th of January, and the Athlete 365 Career Plus program scheduled for 15th and 16th January, creating one unified platform for athlete dialogue and capacity building.
If you are a generation that is fearless, you are a generation that can conquer, you are a generation that can do what we do not do, I see champions in you.
The focus is on ensuring athletes actively participate in shaping conversations around their careers, well-being and representation in sport.
Still on sports, athletes looking to jumpstart the 2026 season will be in action this weekend as the second leg of the Athletics Kenya Track and Field Weekend meeting takes place at Thika Stadium. The Thika meet has been expanded into a 3-day program following the cancellation of the opening leg that was scheduled for Mumias. All events initially planned for Mumias will now be staged in Thika, creating a packed schedule featuring 19 track and field disciplines. Athletes will compete in sprints, middle and long distance races, hurdles, steeplechase, race walk and a wide range of field events, including the combined events for decathletes and hepathletes. Now, Athletics Kenya says the competition is a key for early testing of the athletes' preparedness for a busy 2026 calendar that includes the World Relays, Commonwealth Games and 2 Global Championships later in the year.